Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and do the March reading wrap up. Sorry if I sound congested. I have very bad allergies. And once again, I'm coming to you from lovely hotel room. Just really top of the line, like, lap of luxury over here kind of hotel room. Alright, so in March, read 7 books. Not a ton. I think the next couple months I really was crushing it in terms of reading. So much so that I'm like, oh god, this is going to be a lot to talk about in these videos. But we're not there. We're on March. We're still trying to catch up. So... first book I finished, I want to say, not first book I read, first book I finished, because I finished it like the 1st of March or something, was The Ceremonies by T.E.D. Klein. I read the physical copy of this, which I don't have anymore. So The Ceremonies came out in 1984. It's written by this guy, T.E.D. Klein, who wrote a short story that he then extended to be this novel, The Ceremonies. And it's got a lot of praise over the years from horror writers and horror fans alike, who say that it's very well written for a horror novel, very lyrical prose. And the guy is not prolific. Like, I think he wrote one other collection of stories. And then I think that's it. Just this book and a collection of short stories. I could be wrong, but I know that he does not write a lot. I looked up an interview with him, and I think he says, like, he doesn't like, or he doesn't like to write. Like, it's not something he is excited to sit down and do. He, like, has to force himself to do it, which I thought was interesting. Because after reading this, he is a very good writer. The prose is very lyrical and poetic, and the descriptions are quite... lovely and evocative of the scene he is trying to paint. So The Ceremonies is basically about this guy in New York. I believe he teaches like at community colleges and stuff, like when he can pick up teaching jobs here and there. Don't hold me to that. I think that's what he does. And he's working on something. I think I can't remember if he's working on teaching a class or something on like Gothic literature, which I thought was a fun little, aspect of the story, because the story basically is a Gothic, tale. Anyways, he wants to get out of the city, and so he finds a posting to live in this small town in the country of New Jersey. Basically be a lodger in this like farm family's little shed home thing that they have in their backyard. This family lives in a very religious community, and they kind of have this weird pagan-esque, like, culty religion going on in this town, and things are weird, and it has to do with very like old gods, sort of like ancient evils that reside within the earth. And there's this old man who's trying to resurrect this evil from the land. So I really like the writing. I like the characters. I like the general premise. I really liked the atmosphere that the book creates throughout it. It is a very long book, and it's very slow moving, which I honestly didn't have a problem with until maybe, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through, where it did start to feel a little like, okay, like, because at some point, like, I think in the beginning it's slow, but I'm totally invested, and at some point it's just like endless pages of just like, Jeremy woke up, Jeremy read some more Gothic books, Jeremy goes and has dinner with the Paraths, Jeremy goes to bed early, Jeremy, it's like it's like endless days of just nothing happening, and it's I felt like, a lot could have been cut out. And then the ending is good and it's a decent payoff. I really wrestle with giving this one either a 3.5 or a 4, because while I did like it, I do think it has some problems, namely just in that some of the fat needs to be trimmed. It's just very long for what it is. I think the same thing could have been done shorter, and I think that's a big problem. Because I would like to recommend this book to some people, but it's just like, hey, do you want to read this almost 600-page book? I just don't think it warrants that much. A lot of people have told me the short story is better, which I haven't read, so I can't attest to that. So anyways, I will go 3.5 for this one. It's a good read, but a bit slow and definitely a big one. So a bit of a commitment. After that, I continued through my Goosebumps reading. Read Goosebumps 18, Monster Blood 2. The first Monster Blood was not a huge hit for me. I didn't dislike it, but didn't resonate with it all that much for it to be like such an iconic, part of Goosebumps. I remember, what is the hamster's name? Cuddles. Like seeing Cuddles' face everywhere on products in the 90s. He was a big mascot for Goosebumps. So it was exciting to actually read this one. And I'd kind of put it on par with the first Monster Blood. Like, if you're into Monster Blood, you'll probably be into this. I think Monster Blood's okay. He makes the rat or the hamster big. It's not all that interesting, but it's, it's cute and it's fun. And just 3 stars, I think, for me. 3-star Goosebump read. Just kind of somewhere in the middle. It's okay. After that, I read I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. So I know this is a classic from 1954. I actually listened to this one on audiobook, just kind of randomly, and I really, really liked it. You can definitely tell it was written a while back, but I don't think that that holds it back. It's not hard to read. It definitely holds up, and I really, really liked that it is not like the Will Smith movie. It takes place a lot more in this person's mind. It's kind of more of their descent into madness, living alone in this dark post-apocalyptic world. I don't know what else to really say about it, but I liked it. I thought I give it 4 stars. I think it's a classic for a reason, and I'm glad that I have finally read it. Next thing I read was Dune Messiah. So I read the first Dune a while back before the movies even came out. And so did my wife, but she was rereading Dune because the movies were coming out, and I was like, oh, well, we have this copy of the second Dune book sitting here that I've never read, even though that's not what the second Dune movie is based on. It's based on the second half of book 1. I was like, I'm in the Dune headspace. Let me continue to read Dune. So I guess I should start off by saying I think Dune is fantastic world building. I love this like desert planet of Arrakis, and this, I love the world that Frank Herbert has built. I don't love Frank Herbert's writing. I find it to be a little flat, a little, how do I say this without getting attacked by everybody? I don't know that his writing is flat. I think the quote about fear is the mind killer is one of the best quotes ever. And maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just dumb, but I feel like when I'm reading Dune, I just like I get bored. I get kind of lost and confused sometimes. I have to like go back and be like, wait, what's going on here? And maybe that's just me, or maybe it's Frank Herbert's writing style. So I'm very, torn on Dune. I think once I make it through and I really process the whole book, I love Dune. But as I was reading it, I didn't enjoy it that much. Some parts are better than others for sure. That said, Dune Messiah is a much shorter book. It basically follows Muad'Dib, or Paul Atreides, after much later. I think it's like 12 years or something after the events. I don't remember now, but it's years later, and not a ton happens. It's much more this sort of political drama of him having power, and there was some cool lore with like the navigator creature and like this guy that like lives in a tank and can, or like, I'm just saying things now. I didn't like this as much as the first book. Not a ton happens. That being said, it is a little like easier to follow because there's just not as much world building and lore. I've heard this is a pretty essential piece to the story. Like you can read the trilogy and then continue on past that if you want. So I'll probably read Dune 3. I just don't know what it is with Dune. I think I'm not smart enough. So I just gave this one 3 stars. It was fine. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it before people attack me. Next, I read The Invitation by Diane Ho. This was published in 1992. This is one of the point thrillers or point horror books. Diane Ho, writer of a lot of the Nightmare Hall books. I just picked this one up as like a short little read. I thought it would be fun, and it was. It's very much in the vein of other young adult point horror books from the 90s. Basically, this group of friends gets invited to a house party at like this rich girl's mansion who's like the cool kids, and they're like, this doesn't make sense. Why did we get invited to this? And they go to this party where the rich kids are going to play pranks on them, basically. But then while these pranks are going on, it seems like someone is maybe actually making people disappear at the party in her friend group. And it's very much like a plotted thriller where you're trying to figure out what's going on, who's doing it, and why. And if you've read these kinds of like Hey, my camera died. uh, Why'd your camera die, Brian? Well, that's because I'm just a very prepared, got all my ducks in a row kind of guy. Why does it look like your video quality is terrible now? Well, that's because I don't have my camera charger with me, and I want to finish this video, so I'm filming it on my laptop with the built-in camera. So where was I? The Invitation, I think. It was good. If you know what you're getting into, this kind of book, and it's a good example of that. 3.5 out of 5. All right, moving on. We only got 2 more. The next one that I read was Maeve Fly by C.J. Lead. It came out in 2023. I read this one because a friend of mine recommended it to me. I didn't know anything about it. This is C.J. Leeds' first novel, and I loved it. This book is awesome. It's basically American Psycho, but the main character is like a modern day millennial woman, but also a psycho. And it's just very smart, very well written, very entertaining, um, very feminist. It kind of dips its toes into the extreme horror realm, but I wouldn't say it's an extreme horror novel. I just loved it. I thought this character of Maeve Fly is like incredibly interesting and likable. Um, Definitely recommend this one. I gave it 4.5 out of 5. And the last book I read this month, the month of March, was Soulsmith, Cradle Number 2 by Will White. I talked about the first one in the last video I made, and it's the one that I said is like anime in book form, but not really. I like this one a lot, not as much as the first one. I feel like in the first book, there's a very clear goal. Like this kid is trying to make his way out of his town and gain power and all this stuff. Second book, he's made it out of his town. He's in this like dangerous wilderness area, and him and the other character just kind of I don't know, figuring out what the next steps will be. It feels like a very transitionary novel. And the pacing is not quite as exciting as the first one. I still enjoyed it, and I'm still very much looking forward to making my way through the series. But this one, I think, is more of a 3.5 out of 5 for me. So I think the first one I gave 4, so losing half a star there. But yeah, there you go. That is March. Sorry for the terrible potato quality at the end here. Yeah. See you guys next week.